index room, bound to win a prize. They've been going at it all night long. Well, I'm trying to get some sleep, but these motel walls are cheap. Lincoln Duncan is my name, and here's my song. Here's my song. My father was a fisherman, my mama was the fisherman's friend, and I was born in the boarding and the chowder. So when I reached my prime, I left my home in the Maritime, headed down the turnpike for New England, sweet New England. This is a fun Paul Simon tune to play, Duncan. It's pretty basic on one level. You just have to keep a steady alternating finger picking pattern going through some really easy chords: E minor, D's, G's, C's, and A's. That's it, 5 chords, I think. And then you got to sing the song. But it's very fast as far as the picking goes. It's got this constant flow. The notes are just rolling out in waves, and so. The tricky part about this is to make get the picking up to speed, but not necessarily make it sound like you're racing along, because the singing part is very relaxed. It's kind of like Blackbird in that respect. So you can't sound frantic. So one of the things we'll do in this lesson is work on that, just keeping a simple accompaniment going. I've got tablature and a chord chart and everything you need to get through that. And we'll talk about how it's kind of. You get it down slowly first, then you worry about speeding it up. We'll also talk about the difference between 4/4 time, common time, and cut time, because this is a great example of a song that is in cut time. So there'll be a little theory breakdown just around the corner that talks about that. And then, for the more adventurous, we will work on playing the instrumental part that I just played there. I refer to that as the solo in the song. This was played more on recorders or woodwinds or flutes or something like that at various times when Paul was performing it. But it makes a nice but tricky guitar instrumental, especially if you listen to it carefully there was a neat little effect, a triplet effect that I sometimes refer to as a backwards roll. We will talk about that in the solo segment of this, which is again, a little bit more, maybe significantly more difficult than just picking through the songs. Now, Duncan, of course, came out on Paul Simon's first solo album, just called Paul Simon, that included stuff like Me and Julio and Papa Hobo, Peace Like a River. Some pretty cool tunes on that album. So if you don't have it, you should pick it up. And it will definitely help to have it, to listen to Paul sing the rest of it. I didn't go through the rest of the verses. There are 6 verses, so it gets a little long, which is another reason, kind of like Mr. Bojangles in that. If you play it slow, you're going to stretch it out into a 6 or 8 minute piece. It's not complex enough to be able to last that long. You need to keep this one in the 3 or 4 range. So anyway. But we'll take a look at the very simple finger-picking patterns and the complicated roll that we can throw in the solo. And I kind of figure you already know these chords: E minor, D, C, G, and A. But we might take a little talk about that too. So let's get into the lesson on Duncan. I want to talk a little bit about timing, and in particular, about cut time. Now, when we say a song is in common time means 4/4. 4/4, those two numbers tell us that the top numbers tell us how many beats are in a measure, and the bottom number is telling us what kind of note we're counting. There's not a lot of tricky stuff in the chords in Duncan, except for the very first chord. The way to get the combination sound that he has between a couple of different instruments is to play an E minor chord rather than standard E minor in what would be a D minor shape, and it doesn't even need to be a bar. So what I have here, if you were to play D minor with your first, second, and third fingers, and now switch all your fingers so you've got your second, third, and fourth fingers playing it, not particularly comfortable, but that's the way it would work. And then slide that up a whole step to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th frets, and then add the 4th string at the 2nd fret to that chord. That's our E minor, the voicing we want to use for E minor in the very beginning of the song. I want to talk a little bit about the right hand, just a little, because the finger picking, aside from being fast, is very regular. And in the introduction, we really just have some arpeggios, starting with your thumb on the fourth string and then your middle finger playing the second string, and each finger stays on these top three strings. So slowly through the intro, I'm fingering this E minor chord that is a little clumsy here. That's how that first measure would work. Let's talk a bit about the intro and the verse in this segment. So all you really need is, well, you could use the tablature page, the Guitar Pro or the PDF file, but you really just need the chord chart where we have the chords and lyrics on a page. So hopefully you've printed that up and you've got it ready to go. And it's just showing you how many measures you play of each chord before you go on to the next chord. So understanding the chord progression is half the battle. This is a very simple chord progression. We just have an introduction of a couple measures of E minor. You could do 2 or you could do 4 between each verse, depending on just how you're feeling. And so in the first thing we're going to do, though, in the intro is start off with this arpeggio. We're not going to go into the steady alternating bass thing that we're going to be doing in the verse just yet. So to kind of set the stage, and this is what Paul Simon does in his arrangement of this, is you hear a particular voicing of an E minor chord that we looked at in the left-hand close-up that is not just the standard E minor. Now, it's not a very comfortable one either, so this is a great way to reach out of your comfort zone a little bit and play a chord that is not necessarily too comfortable. Now, so again, as we looked at in the left hand, it's a D minor shape of a chord, but I'm using not my first finger. I'm using my second, third, and fourth fingers to play a D minor chord, then sliding it up to a whole step and adding my first finger back at the fourth string at the second fret on the note E. Well, the little solo I put together for Duncan combines what one of the melodies was doing, what the flute was doing, with what the guitar was doing. Now, the guitar part was really basic. There was nothing going on there except keeping steady alternating bass going and just playing the chords just the way he was doing in the verse. But what we're trying to do here is get the melody, which was very slow moving, which is kind of nice because the song is so quick, and combine it with, again, make just a finger picking solo out of it. So I talked in the right-hand close-up about one fancy little flourish that I was putting in there. I just want to go over that again because you can learn this without that. But it's right there in the first measure of the solo. You can see we've got a pinch on the C chord, then hitting the second bass note, then moving to G in the bass. And that's happening by moving your third finger down to G in the bass. And then that G is followed by 2 fingers played. This is a triplet. Now what that means, that beat has been split instead of into 2 equal parts, which would be eighth notes, it's split into 3 equal parts.